Could visit my website at www.votecharlottegoddard.com.
And we can put a link to that on our website as well, so people can find that. We will be watching very closely in November, and I just wish you all the luck in the world. I really hope that you and all of the other really outstanding, brave teachers and women who are standing up and saying, that's enough, we need to do something. I hope that you're all successful. I think it's so important and so great that you've gotten involved in this way.
Thank you so much. It was kind of a leap of faith. It's not something that I had planned to do. I had so much support and encouragement. I am an alumna of the Emerge Kentucky program, which actually has helped me prepare to run as a candidate, and that's been a good program to tap into. And then I have a lot of support through other organizations, such as the Women's March. I was part of the Women's March, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, KEA, of course, the NOW Western Kentucky Group, the ACLU, the NAACP, Kentucky 120, Moms Demand Action. So, there's been a lot of support, and I so appreciate, what everyone has done for me, and the support and the encouragement of my campaign has been tremendous, and I surely appreciate that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and thank you for everything you're doing.
Yes, thank you.
I'm here in this segment with Helen Pendarvis, who is running for the 35th District of the South Carolina House of Representatives. Hi, Helen.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah, could we start with just a little bit of background? Tell me a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run for the State House.
I am a mom of 5. I have 4 adult sons and a 9-year-old daughter. I am a child advocate by education and passion. I currently work as a paralegal for a local law firm, and I decided to run not just because we need a change in other areas of politics, but we need a change in local politics. And most people don't realize how local politics affect them. So a part of why I run is to educate people on how local politics affect them and how I can better serve them than the current representative.
In South Carolina right now, the Republicans have a really big majority in the State House. So what does that look like for you then, this idea of local politics and what sort of impact you can really have in the State House?
Well, one of the things that I look at is our State House decides on our teachers' pay here in the state. And in the state of South Carolina, our teachers are some of the lowest paid teachers in the United States. And I think having a House and a governor that agree that we need to change that would change our teachers' pay, and we wouldn't be last in education.
So what part of South Carolina is District 35?
District 35 is in Spartanburg County, and it is the area of Duncan, Reedville, Woodruff, and the Pelham Road area.
And as you're going around and talking to people and canvassing, what are you hearing from people in this district? It's been a Republican district for a while, and it hasn't even, the incumbent hasn't even really been challenged much by Democrats. So what are you hearing from people?
the things that we heard today as we canvassed, it was about what's going to happen to the current elementary school that's being rebuilt. So that's been a really concern of the people. And although I've explained to them that as a state representative, that, that's not something that I have control over, but apparently they seem to think so because the current representative is kind of in the middle of that whole controversy as to what's going to happen. But the main thing that I've heard from the constituents, their concern is about the personhood bill that died in the House last session. People are really concerned about what that means to them. What happens if that bill passes? Is it going to be, that's not going to stop abortion. It's going to cause, a lot of young women to die. And so that's been a lot of what I've been hearing.
And can you talk to me a little bit about your faith? I know that's something that's important to you, and sort of how that helps inform your political views.
Because my faith does play a large part, and I'm led by my faith, I'm also led by the belief that we have to allow people to have their own convictions. We can't force our convictions on others. My faith is just that. It is my faith. I'm led by my faith, so I can't expect you to be led by my faith. It has to be your conviction, and I believe that 100%.
Are you hearing from people in the church and people in your faith community concerns about the way that both state and national government is working right now?
Yes. What I've been hearing from both people in my church and in the community, in the faith community, they are very concerned about national government, and everybody wants to know what's really going on. Why are these choices being made? Why is something not being done? And I'm also hearing from the community, if you're led by your faith, how can would you allow certain things to continue? And because I am, it would definitely impact the way I voted on some things. But ultimately, it would be what's in the best interest of my constituents. And I think being led by my faith would ensure that whatever decisions I made would be in the best interest of my constituents.
So what are some of the other issues? You mentioned education. What are some of the other things that you think are in the best interest of constituents, things that aren't being well taken care of right now?
Affordable housing. And people think when you say affordable housing, you mean, things like Section 8 housing or projects or things like that. But there needs to be decent, affordable housing for every income. If you know anything about renting an apartment, your pay must be 3 times the amount of your rent. Well, if you make minimum wage, you don't make 3 times the average rent. And in the average rent in the upstate is $1,190. So if you make $7.25 or 35 cents an hour, you don't make enough money to rent that apartment. So if we're not going to change the minimum wage, then we need to do something about housing. But we need to change the minimum wage. It's no longer a living wage. And that's one of the things I've been hearing a lot about, too. When are we going to get a living wage? Most people aren't looking for $15 an hour, but they are looking for a living wage, something that they can live off of and feed their family. And, that's just not happening in this state. And I know there's a federal minimum wage, but there is something that the state of South Carolina can do to change that as well.
One of the things we've been talking to people about as we've been talking around the country to state legislative candidates is how different the role of state legislator looks in different places. And so I noticed that in South Carolina, the compensation for a House representative is really low. It's just a little over $10,000 a year, and then a per diem when it's in session. So what does that look like then in terms of who is currently who are the representatives? You know, who are the people who can live on this kind of, you know, compensation for what they're doing and, you know, can do sort of part-time work? You know, what does the current House look like?
So the current House being predominantly Republican controlled or being Republican controlled, they are all wealthy people. They are business owners and property owners and attorneys who, you know, they are wealthy people. Most of the Democratic representatives have jobs. Like myself, I would not leave my job as a paralegal. I've already spoken to my attorneys, and it kind of freaked them out at first when they thought, "Oh my God, what are we going to do when you leave?" But then, you know, I assured them I could work remotely. I'll be there on Mondays and Fridays, but you know, that's my reality. It takes two incomes to run my household, and I definitely couldn't do it as a state representative. Mm-hmm. So money is definitely not a motivator in why I run.
Sure. Yeah, that seems like that's probably true for most people running for state legislature. Are there concerns about healthcare in your district? I noticed when I was looking through that the incumbent was one of the people who had put a bill to make the implementation of the Affordable Care Act a criminal act in South Carolina. And so I'm wondering, what are a lot of people in South Carolina using the Affordable Care Act, and in your district, are they concerned about healthcare?
A lot of people in South Carolina do depend upon the Affordable Care Act. One of my sons, you know, he's not 26, he's 29. It depends on the Affordable Care Act because the job that he has does not provide insurance. He works for a mom and pop company, so he depends on the Affordable Care Act. And my district is a little different because I have in my district the wealthy and the poor. I don't have a whole lot of the in-between. So a lot of my constituents do depend on the Affordable Care Act, and they depend on the subsidies that they are allowed in order to afford health insurance. And some of them, you know, they depend on Medicaid and Medicare. And a lot of them, especially my older citizens, are concerned about what's going to happen if my Medicare goes away, or those that have Medicare and Medicaid, you know, they'll tell me, you know, Medicaid pays for my medicine. What's going to happen if Medicaid goes away? And that's a real concern for a lot of my constituents, because if Medicaid goes away, then they may have to make the choice between buying groceries and buying meds, or buying medicine and paying the electric bill. So it is a real concern of my constituents, some of my constituents, as to what happens if the Affordable Care Act, Medicare, and Medicaid go away.
Is there anything else that you want to make sure we talk about?
Well, I'd like to expound on my platform just a little more.
Sure.
There are a couple of beliefs that I have, and I strongly stand by, and one of which is on my website. I have a blog that says, "Hell yeah, we need to arm teachers." And I believe that we do need to arm teachers, because one of the things that I've seen as I talk to teachers is they need an advocate. And I'm also finding that a lot of teachers don't vote because they feel like their vote doesn't matter and they don't have a choice. So one of the things that I stand on as my platform, and as the opportunity arises in South Carolina, I will be a very loud voice for is education reform. I think our teachers not only need a pay increase, a huge pay increase, but I believe that they need to have dignity returned to them. My daughter, this is her, and I'm not ashamed to say, but this is my daughter. She's in fourth grade, her first year in public school. She's always gone to private school because of the situation of our public school systems, but we're in a very good school district, so we decided to see how she adjusted to public school. Her teacher gets, in the morning, they have related arts, so her teacher gets 40 minutes to check emails, to return phone calls to parents,